Welcome back to the Budding Author Podcast with me, your host, Simon Ward. Today, we are talking to Lorraine Carey. Hi, Lorraine, award-winning teacher, or author, teacher, editor, writer, and very in touch with the spirits, aren't you?
Yes. And hello, everybody. And thanks for tuning in. And thank you, Simon, for having me.
It is my pleasure. It is my pleasure. And we were just talking before we sort of came on air. Supernatural world is sort of the heart. Bringing paranormal thrillers to the table is your mission. So I asked the question, are you a very spiritual person as far as religious, or is it just sort of very spiritual sensing?
It's both. I was raised in a very strict Catholic home. I went to Catholic school, private school. My mother was very religious. However, she was a psychic and open to the paranormal, and she had experiences. I've had experiences my whole life, and she has. So, I grew up with an open mind. We believed in other things, anything is possible. So I've had experiences as well as she has. So, with that, I've had experiences since childhood. So that set out a passion for me. I love the paranormal. And a lot of my novels are based on things that have really happened.
Yeah. What sort of key things have happened with you then?
We'll go back until we lived in Ohio, Arizona, New Mexico, Northern California, and even in the Caribbean on a small island. In Arizona, they have the famous Superstition Mountains, which are has a lot of Native American legends and whatnot. So we did a lot of hiking back there, and there's a place called Weaver's Needle, which is known to be a portal that some people believe. So we were hiking.
Yeah.
We were hiking one day in back in the Superstitions, and they always say, that sacred ground should not go where you should be back there. So came home, and I started to bleed, and I thought, what is going on here? What's happening? So my husband took me to ER. Come to find out, I was pregnant at the time. I did not know it, and I kind of was attempting to have a miscarriage.
Yeah.
And my husband is very spiritual too, and we both thought back. Okay, we were probably in a place where we shouldn't have been. Okay, had that experience. As a teenager, I had out of body experiences. As a teenager, quite frightening. I could see myself leaving my body. Time would move very slowly. I have had, let me just say, kind of time slips. I've had uncontrolled remote viewing where I have been able to, I don't want to scare people out there, go into places. My daughter, I have two daughters in California. One was living in a condo at one time, and I was able to go in there at night, and I told her about it. And she really freaked out. And I said, you shouldn't freak out because this is your mom. I've been doing things like this my whole life. So when we moved to Grand Cayman, we were there for 9 years. My husband was working there on a work visa. Okay.
Yeah.
And, being in the Caribbean, there's a lot of legends, as I'm sure you know. And we were renting down there. Well, he was working. We were renting in a condo development, which was kind of right on the ocean. Okay. And there was a lady there who was, living there long before we did. And she was telling me the legends about this enchantress who is from the sea. And I was like really interested in it, So then she was telling me, she goes, be very careful because she likes to attack tourists, which led me to write this book, Night Mistress of Paradise Palms. Yeah. And it is about the enchantress who likes to steal the souls of tourists. And I always say to everybody, when you travel, you go into a hotel, we check the sheets, right? But do we know the kind of energy that's been in that room before we're there?
Well, they say with writing you should write what you know, and I think
Right.
paranormal thrillers sounds like a perfect fit for you. When did you start writing, Lorraine?
You know, I started writing when we moved to Grand Cayman. It was, and I'll go back here, 2009. I was teaching in Orange County, California, and a lot of things happened in 2009, Simon. I lost both of my parents 3 months apart, 3 months apart, and it was just devastating. I was a specialist, reading specialist at a school, and the district was doing teacher cutbacks. So we knew the special teachers, okay, we were going to be the first ones to go. So
Yeah.
I lost my job. My husband lost his job. I mean, it was just like, it was like we went down the black hole, or the rabbit hole.
Ideal time to move, I think.
So anyway, we're sitting there in Orange County, right, in our condo. My girls were grown, they were away, and everything. And my husband started looking for a job, and he was in warehouse logistics. So he put his application online, and somebody in Grand Cayman found his application. So we went down there for an interview, hired him on the spot, moved there. And that's when I started writing, right around 2009.
Yeah.
And I started with that Mysteries of the Red Coyote Inn, which encompasses the Superstition Mountains that I talked about in Arizona. So yeah, it's been since 2009.
I think within your writing process, because of the spiritual element,
Mm-hmm.
I would think perhaps you don't overall plan your draft. Is it more you just see how the spirit takes you as you're writing, or are you a planner?
It can go that way, but as they say, once a teacher, always a teacher. So I'm very old school. So I start with I get the big poster board, you're familiar with. And
Yeah.
like I taught my students, we outline everything. We do the character sketch, the setting sketch, the vocabulary, very old school. But here's the big but. Once I start writing, it's like, I don't even look at that. And you're right, the spirit takes over.
Yeah.
And it kind of dictates what needs to be in there. But I do start with a plan. I do start with a plan.
I think in most good reads, the characters sort of take over the story, so we can have an idea of what's going to happen, and then suddenly the character or the overall strongest being sort of takes over the story. As I mentioned before we came online, my new series, a YA series, The Life of Billy Spark, is sort of in that sort of supernatural, where he's got a life book which he's supposed to follow, but when he deviates from the path, his world all changes and that sort of thing, and the book repopulates. It's again with that, it's sort of, I had a plan for this, and it sort of started taking control of itself, and it's a great to be the vessel for sort of helping that story bring itself to the fore. Do you think you're probably the same with yourself?
I have to agree on what you're telling me. I'm sure you're familiar with automatic writing, Simon.
Automatic writing. Tell me more.
It's where spirit takes over. And
yeah.
You'll see a lot of psychics do that. There's one psychic, I can't think of his name, but he will go with pen and paper, and he'll sit with somebody, and he'll just start writing, and that's what comes through. And actually, I had a really strange experience. If you want me to go into it,
why not?
Like I said, I'm not here to scare anybody, boo. But it does happen. And this was a little woo. This was in the Caymans. I was writing one of my novels called The Last Vestal Virgin.
Yeah,
which is a fiction novel. I'm, the ancient cult of the Vestal Virgins of Rome. And I was researching about goddesses, and I was writing at the table, as I had planned, yada, yada. And all of a sudden, my wrist over here got 3 burn marks, like I had stuck my hand in the oven, okay? And I thought, what in God's name is this? And my husband came home from work. It goes, well, you probably just put your hand in the oven. And I mean, it was to a point where it looked like second-degree burns.
Yeah.
Went to the doctor, and she said the same thing. She said, were you cooking? And I said, no, I wasn't even near the stove. Come to find out, what happened was, because I was writing about those Vestal Virgins, something, sometimes when we're writing, something can come through. Yeah. And I had gotten an attachment, and that's the way they had left their mark. And that kind of freaked me out, but I did finish the story.
I was going to say, do you get scared by that generally, or is it something you welcome?
I was concerned, but after that, I have a friend who is a psychic who helped me ground myself and, light the white candles and just be grounded. And, still stuff happens. I'll be writing a paranormal and like the lights will flicker off and on, or the TV will come on. And, I've gotten to a point where it's like, okay, this is the story, this is my story, all is good. It's gotten to be like the norm at this point, but I've never had anything like I did with those burns. Sorry about that. It never got to the point where, like I said, I had those burns. That was really, because that was physical,
Yeah, that would, I think that would freak me out massively, really. I think because you've had it, as you've grown up with it, it's probably easier for you to cope with, I would say. As far as publishing your books, did you go the traditional route, or you independently published?
Well, if we go years back to 2009, or possibly I think it was 2010, I had Mysteries of the Red Coyote Inn and a couple of my young adult books with it's called Lady Bee Publishing, which was a smaller publishing house out of Canada. But I dissolved my contract. I decided to be an indie author after that. I dissolved my contract. And since about 2010 or 11, I became an indie author.
And how do you get on with gaining traction? I see on Twitter you've done very well. You got 50,000 followers on Twitter.
I'm happy about that. That took a lot of work, Simon.
I can imagine. I'm just over 1,500, I think, or 1,600, something like that. So it's
it's kind of a system that, I attended one of those workshops online by somebody where you get it for free, and then, okay, you could pay $250 and then they'll go further. But what I learned for free, the system is what I've been following religiously, and, it's been working. So,
yeah, I think, I was talking to Annie Acorn, and she was saying, like, when people follow you, don't just sort of follow back, sort of message them, not on direct message, but message them through their Twitter, thanking them and explaining what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve and that sort of thing. So I've been sticking to that mostly. But social media does take up such a lot of time, doesn't it?
It does, and I think another big thing is interacting with people, like, commenting and say, wow, and supporting. I've been involved a lot with the writing community on Twitter and retweeting, and like you said, interacting is really, a big thing. And what they told me to do at the workshop was pose questions, get on there and say, okay, does anybody have questions? Now, I'm here, I'm ready to answer. Yeah. So the interaction is really plays a big part of that.
Yeah, I think I did a workshop with Jen McLeod, and that's gone live recently. We talked through how to place ads and how to structure ads and how to make sure that you're sort of not spending a lot of money doing it and that. And I found that really good. I've just sort of delved into it myself, because previously I'd not placed ads. I'd sort of held off. So I've only just started. I'm just dipping my toe in it. So I'm gonna have a full walkthrough of my process that I'm gonna sort of put on the show as well. But do you place ads, dear, or?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because, like I said, you see, there's a lot of ways you can go with well, now they call it X,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good plan. And I see a lot of people are going live too. I haven't gone live on X. I've gone live on Facebook before, but I have not done it on X.
Yeah, that's interesting one. Who's the biggest champion of your writing, Lorraine?
Biggest champion?
Yeah.
Probably my husband.
Does he proofread everything, or is he just
Oh,
like a
he
silent
used to.
partner?
He used to. He doesn't now. So,
No.
but
My wife grudgingly reads some of my stuff. I think more my YA stuff she's more interested in, really, rather than my first series was more sci-fi, and she wasn't too keen on the sci-fi side of things.
Okay.
Instagram, is that something you get involved with?
You know, it's on and off for me. I was going. It's really weird, Simon, because it's like I was going full steam on Instagram for a while, and I don't know. I kind of backed off for it. It just seems like X is where I kind of, that's kind of my home base.
Got
But I
most
do need to get
reactions,
back.
yeah.
Don't do TikTok at all. I started on that and I haven't done anything, but I need to do more on Instagram. I'm not that active, but like I said, I plan to do more on Instagram.
But as far as sort of structuring time is concerned, how do you find time for doing all of it? I really struggle for time. So I have a couple of other things I do as well. So I really struggle for time. I do schedule posts for TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram.
Yeah, and it does, like I said, we have to have our writing time, and it does, and we all have lives, we've got families and we've got our duties and whatnot, But I use, what is it? I think I use TweetDeck to schedule, but a lot of my tweets or my posts are organic. I rather just be on there.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have a time schedule. I get up at 4:30 a.m. every morning. Not because I want to. My husband works and I want to see him off to work. And then 6 o'clock, I get on X and I start. And then I kind of go off and I take breaks and I go back to it. And then I go to Facebook. And then Instagram is my nightly thing. So I kind of break it up. I break it up in pieces.
It's procrastination is a bit of a challenge, isn't it? We all get pulled into looking through Facebook, or with me, my challenge, my guilty pleasure is YouTube.
Oh my God. I'm addicted to YouTube.
I could watch YouTube all day, really. I think sometimes I feel like I do. And the fact that I'm a content creator on YouTube, I think I should give some back as well. So
yeah, I can get carried away, especially watching all these haunted shows and the paranormal. Mm-hmm.
And of course, they send you more of the stuff you like to get you to watch for longer. It's very clever algorithms and that sort of stuff, isn't it? As a writer, what do you struggle most with?
Oh gosh, probably I get writer's block. I'll start something and I'll really get into it, and then I'll stop, and I just can't get back into it, and I struggle with that.
Yeah, I think I'm the opposite. I find when I'm sitting down to write, I can write quite freely. It's just
good.
If I've got a list of things to do for the day, I can't settle down and write until I've finished everything else. Where some people would say, "Oh, well, writing's my priority. I'll do my writing first, then try and squeeze the other stuff in." If I know I've got outstanding tasks for the day, I need to get those done before I can settle down and focus on my writing. That's probably
right.
That's probably my biggest challenge, I think. So the genre, paranormal thrillers, you've got that in YA as well, you say?
Yes. Yeah. I started with YA because, as a reading specialist, especially teaching middle grade, and they're like, well, it was hard to motivate my boys to read, right? Let me tell you. So when we moved to the Caymans, and I thought, okay, I'm going to write some books that, you know, my boys, I was a storyteller when I taught school. I used to just make up these stories, and they wanted spooky stories. So they wanted me to, and I could just, you know, come up with them off the top of my head. And I used to say, you know, if I don't stop telling you guys spooky stories, I'm going to lose my job. And, you know, because my name is Mrs. Carey, some of the teachers used to call me Mrs. Scary.
Just because of the stories, obviously.
But so anyway, so I thought, okay, so I'm going to write YA, you know. So my Mysteries of the Red Coyote Inn is about a teen boy. He's got a dirt bike. He goes out in the desert, you know, and he finds all this stuff, this mysterious happenings with the Superstition Mountains. And then I wrote Jonathan's Locket, which took place on Grand Cayman. The Wreck of the 10 Sails happened there. And there's hauntings, supposed to be things happening on the island and the waters. So that's a YA book. And then my last Vestal Virgin is YA, which is more centered to like younger girls, because it's about the Vestal Virgins. So from that, I thought, okay, I'm just going to venture into the adult market. And that's where I went from there.
Yeah. The do you feel that it's important that every book has a message, particularly when doing YA? With
YA, yeah, I sort of do, you know, because, and not that, you know, and I was always told when I first started writing, do not lecture. Nobody wants a lecture. So yeah, you know, my books, even though some of them are dark and they're paranormal, I got to tell you, in the end, I have a saying, the light always wins.
Yeah.
Over the darkness. And I want my readers, especially young people, to know that, you know.
Yeah. It's funny with the life of Billy Spark, sort of the main character Billy, is his life has been foretold and his fate has been sort of set before him. But the underlying message is you can change your fate. Your life is in your hands to change, even though the premise of the book is that your life is set. So that's sort of that's the one. AI, artificial intelligence, that is becoming a bigger and bigger story. Where are you with all that?
You know, I tested it. Okay, I tested it and I didn't like it. To me, it's not organic. Like I took a couple paragraphs on Chat GPT. And I prompted it to run. I said, okay, can you rewrite this so it sounds more scary or threat? You know, it's how you prompt it. Threatening, scary. You know, it was good. But to me, you know, when you're writing your story, it's got to be organic. It wasn't my voice.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just not for me. I know a lot of people are using it, but I think it's the future, you know.
Yeah. I think I had a chat with Kayla Hawke and we talked about the blurred lines of artificial intelligence, because I use Pro Writing Aid software, which sort of like a bit like Grammarly and that sort of thing. So some people would say that's AI because that is analysing and correcting my writing for me.
Yeah.
But at what point, maybe from my point of view, that's on the good side of AI.
You're right.
Where the Chat GPT and Claude is perhaps on the crossing over the line. But how many people are producing books from AI, do you think?
I think quite a few. I've watched some videos. You know, when AI first came out in Chat GPT, you know, I was really curious, and I was actually following this one young man. He was an author, and he said, you know, you could write 2 books a month and publish them and blah, 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 the whole story. So, I kind of looked at it, but I thought, no, because this is not me, and AI does not know what's up here or in my heart. So I thought, not for me.
It's the passion within, and the characters coming alive within you, isn't it? That's where the big difference. That's where the big difference is. But it is something we need to be aware of.
Absolutely.
And sort of fight against. Where will it all end? Because the artificial intelligence seems to have sort of on a big march, isn't it? Not just in the writing world. I think in
I think it's everywhere. I mean, it's everywhere.
What we used to call sci-fi is now reality, isn't it? Or it's next year's project.
You know, I'm afraid. I think that's our future. I mean, I think that's where we're going. Like I said, you know, it could. Some people say it could be a blessing, or it could be totally, you know,
Yeah.
it could go down the rabbit hole. So I think you need to be careful with it. So
I think that's why we need, and that's why people need the escapism of reading a good book, taking yourself out of the crazy world. We used to. I was talking to someone earlier. I hadn't seen him for about 20 years, and I said we said 20 years ago that the world had gone to the dogs, and little did we realise how worse it was going to get. And I said, so what's it going to be like in 20 years? Is it going to be any better? I can't imagine it will be.
God, I don't know where we're going to be. But, you know, like I said, you know, my relaxation, I go to bed every night with a book. That's how I relax.
Yeah.
And I was reading a book the other night on my Kindle. I downloaded it. And I could almost tell, because I knew the author, that it was AI. It was very, institutional writing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I downloaded another book. I mean, if you know an author's style and you've been reading their book and all of a sudden they use AI, you could tell.
Yeah, you get it straight away.
Yeah, like I said, it's very institutionalized. It's not, it lacks a lot of clarity and it lacks a lot of common sense.
I think along the similar lines, I think with AI, the formulaic stories will just be perpetuated with that. From my point of view, a story needs to be original.
Yes.
This perfect sort of 3-act scenario and that sort of thing is difficult for me, because with my reading and with my writing, things need to sort of break new ground and not follow sort of very clear paths, as it were. Lee Child is Reacher series is fantastic, but the books are all very similar in structure, and you can say the same with James Patterson. But Ben Elton, for example, his stories have sort of, they grab me so much more because they've sort of got a whole fresh feel to them. And right. I think when I write, I write sort of fast-paced and quite energetic writing, and as I mentioned earlier, the characters take over the story, and if there's a really good twist, in a lot of the cases, it's the characters that come up with the twist, not me. I do occasionally sort of get a few. I can remember one in one of my first books, Finding Love in 2045, and the character thought she was being I can't give too much away for people who haven't read it, but the character thought that she was being cheated on. And then as it came out, she wasn't actually being cheated on, and she sort of, it was that twist. But then I added another twist into that, which sort of which tripped me up as well. It's like, how about if that was not was the case, and that sort of thing. So yeah, Finding Love in 2045, I had a lot of fun with that. It's a good adult read, and but I think my problem is I never really thought, I know this is a big issue for me, at that point early in my writing, I hadn't really picked a genre. It was general sci-fi, but the story is more romantic drama, but not a typical romance. So it's sort of like a dark romantic sci-fi drama sort of.
I like that.
So where would you put that in? Where would you put that in the bookshelf? I don't know.
Dark romance.
Dark romance.
Mm-hmm.
I think dark romance, sci-fi.
Yeah, dark, and you know, that's kind of where my latest one here, Between the Realms, is a little bit of sci-fi, it's dark romance. So it's time travel.
So I think dark romance covers that genre sort of not your perfect romance sort of thing is a dark romance, you would say?
I think when there's like betrayal involved, some sort of psychological, something going on, this psychological manipulation, it's dark.
So it's a bit of a realistic romance.
Yeah, exactly. Realistic. Yeah. Who doesn't have psychological manipulation in any romance, right?
That's it. Not your classic sort of they didn't like each other, they got together, they had a misunderstanding, split up, and then they got back together just for Christmas morning. That's great.
Yeah.
Lorraine, this has been fantastic. You are a treasure, and I wish you all the spiritual health, and hope things good with you. It's been excellent talking to you, and
it's been a blast. I'm honored, Simon. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. If if you can send me your links, we'll put the links in the description, so people can check out your work and your writing and your Twitters and all that sort of stuff. So if we get that in there, that'll be first class. Right then, always good. The Budding Author Podcast, sharing our experiences, tips and advice. It's great, isn't it? Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.